I think when I found out, I was like, wow, it's exciting. And then maybe 30 seconds to a minute later, I was like, oh, actually, I'm kind of crushed.
Welcome back to another episode of Smashed Oranges. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe. It really helps us keep bringing you fresh new content every week and growing our community.
Welcome back, you guys. Today is going to just be a little casual conversation about an experience that I shared on social media. And it is a little bit, it feels controversial to talk about, but I think the reason why I decided to share it on social media was because it felt so like, we don't talk about that. That's, keep those feelings to yourself.
Yeah.
And the feelings are gender disappointment. Okay, so I just found out the gender of my second baby.
Yeah.
And I told Maddie, she was the first person that found out. Maddie, what am I having?
She's having a boy.
I'm having a boy. And do you recall what my personality was at the time? How was I acting? Did you notice anything about just my reaction to finding out the news?
I mean, I felt like you kind of were in maybe a bit of like shock or something.
That's kind of true. I was a little bit surprised. I think shock is probably the best word rather than surprised, because in my head and kind of in my heart, I think I knew I was having a boy. And Maddie called it from the very beginning. All the people were calling it from the very beginning. Yeah. They were like, you're definitely having a boy. My symptoms have been different enough from the first time. And I'm carrying a little bit lower and all the things. And so, we decided to do a 3D scan to find out a little bit earlier because we have no patience. And when we were doing the scan, little baby was moving around so much, but so we couldn't really get like a good look at their face or anything and just try to like guess. But of course, the tech already knew. We had asked her to keep it secret until she could put it in an envelope and we could find out at home. But in the middle of this 3D scan, for some reason, I just started calling it a he. And I was like, it's a boy for sure. And I'm like no pro. I'm no pro watching any scans. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I wasn't catching anything on the scan. But on the way home, I asked Josh, I was like, okay, what do you think we're having? And I still think we're having a boy. And I was like, I think we're having a boy too. And so when the moment came that I opened up the envelope and I said, it's a boy, it did. It like hit me like a brick wall. Like it was so strange because, like I said, in my head, I thought I knew. But until you really know, it just like hits different. Yeah. So I think when I found out, I was like, wow, that's exciting. And then maybe 30 seconds to a minute later, I was like, oh, actually, I'm kind of crushed.
Oh, no.
And Josh kind of knew this is a possibility because I had told him, like, I would really love to have a girl so that Poppy can have a little sister. I'm the oldest in my family, and I have a sister that came directly after me. And although we fought like cats and dogs, as most siblings do, especially sisters, I think, we grew up really close. Like, we shared a room for a long time. She was just like my little sidekick. Even as we grew up into teenagers, she would come and hang out with me and my friends. And now we're still as close as ever. And of course, like, your relationship changes and stuff. But I just really envisioned that for Poppy. I was like, I would love for Poppy to experience like the older sister with a younger sister kind of dynamic, because that's what I experienced. And that's something that I could relate to. And so I think in my head, I just had kind of, my sister a little bit called me out on it. She's like, I think you're seeing this like rose-colored glasses, like our relationship and the way it was. I was like, well, okay. I don't know what you remember. My memories are pretty good. But it was kind of like a grounding moment for me. I was like, okay, like maybe I'm just like hyping up the sister relationship a little bit too much because she mentioned, so after she was born, my first brother was born. Yeah. And so they have the sister-brother relationship that Poppy's going to have with baby number 2. And so she had commented on one of my Instagram posts and was like, me and Matt are really close and we've always got along. And it was funny because I, for some reason, never thought about that dynamic. Yeah. And I had to laugh a little bit because I remember, as they got older and got closer and did more stuff together, I was a little bit jealous. It's like, oh, there's like no drama between you two. And so yeah, it started to change my perspective a little bit. But so it took me about a week. I cried. I cried a lot, actually. And that was something that I felt really quite guilty about. But at the same time, I was trying to let myself recognize what the emotions were. I wasn't just going to squash it and like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling like this. And so I'm really proud of myself for the fact that I let myself sit with it for a while. You know, Josh would come in and say like, hey, are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? And I was like, no, I actually don't want to talk about it. I just wanted to sit and think about what my emotions are and why they are, why I had so deep of an expectation for the relationship that Poppy was going to have with her sibling, and why realistically that's changing so much with a boy. And so I'm curious if you've ever had similar thoughts, like you're not pregnant yet. Knock on wood. But have you ever thought about like, oh, you prefer to have Arden with a brother or a sister? It's never really like been an issue for you?
I don't know. I've thought about like, it'd be fun to have a brother, but it'd also be fun to have a sister. I feel like I see like two different versions of it, and both are equally as cool in my brain.
That's neat. That's neat.
But I want to ask you, so you were talking about this like relationship you envisioned Poppy having with her younger sister. What elements do you want Poppy to like have in a relationship with her younger sibling, or we'll say sister? Like what were the things about like sister specifically, and like let's say like outside of like playing dolls together, like those typical like gender things that like sisters would do, like makeup or hair or whatever. Like what are the actual like fundamental relationship dynamics you wanted Poppy to have with her sister?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question, because it kind of goes back to, you know, after I started to wrap my head around the fact that we're having a boy, I was like, realistically, why? Like, what makes so much of a difference, right? And so, to answer your question, I think I kind of was like, oh, girl talk, you know, share the same room. Not that you can't share a room with your brother, but I was like, you know, it's just like a different sisterhood where you just share the same experiences by virtue of both being female. Yeah. And your brains just kind of function on a little bit of a different vibe than boys do, and that's just how it is. And so I think really at the base of it, that's fundamentally what it was. It's just like I wanted them to have like similar experiences that they could talk about and have the same kind of mindset. But even saying that, I have to recognize that every girl is so different anyways. Like there's nothing that would guarantee that kind of relationship between the two of them, right? And so as I was sitting in my time assessing the news, I was kind of bringing myself back and asking myself like what kind of like gender roles I was expecting out of my kids, right? And it was really interesting because I'd made a comment to my aunt, said, oh, I was just like, you know, Poppy's really enjoying her play kitchen set that we have for her. And I was envisioning like another little girl playing at the kitchen set with her. And she says, oh, well, we had a kitchen set and I had all boys for most of my parenthood. Yeah. She had a girl last. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, duh. Call myself progressive, but here I am assuming that my little boy isn't going to want to sit at a kitchen and play.
We don't have a kitchen set, but Arden is obsessed with the kitchen. Like our real kitchen. Like he wants to do the dishes. He wants to play with the like cutlery and like
and that's, you know? So it's so great. And like how natural is that, right? Like kids just see activities as activities. Yep. And then we start to form them to what our expectations are and say, oh, like girls should be in the kitchen more. And then I think it's translated to, you know, now we see a lot more women. Obviously cultural and societal norms are a huge role, but you know, then we start to see more women that have to take on more household tasks, I think, than men traditionally. And that's not something I want to continue on in my family. Like I would love to establish a dynamic of equal partnership and like everyone's plays a role in the household. And so I think in that aspect, I started to get more excited about having a boy because it's like, oh, you know, we kind of briefly touched on this in another episode. Just like, what do we want to teach our kids? And I was like, this is the perfect opportunity to teach my boy like what I would want him to be growing up. You know, like, I think, again, Josh is a great role model. And so it's cool to see that, you know, we can pick and choose things that we want to teach our kids, and it doesn't have to be based on gender. You know, like if I had a girl, I'd still be teaching my daughter to stand up for herself and rough and tumble play and go do sports and, you know, be, I don't know, you know, carry out a lot of like more masculine roles or traits. However, whatever you think masculine is, I think there's like a balance to everybody, right? So like, it's just, it's been very liberating to come around to that and to be excited thinking, oh, okay, now our family dynamic is going to be a little bit different because now we're introducing a little boy. And Josh, of course, is excited because he gets his little buddy, and I'm excited because I have my little girl too, and everyone always makes comments like, "Oh, now you have a matching set." You know, we got one of each is perfect. You can stop if you want. Yeah. Not that that's anyway. So it's kind of it's been a really good transition for me, and I'm glad that I took the time because I also didn't announce to a lot of people what we were having until I felt really excited about it. I feel good about that decision.
Yeah, so. That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. Do you remember being a kid? Like, do you have like vivid memories of being like 5 and 6 and 7?
Yeah,
like
I've got some.
Childhood?
Yeah.
Because like, did you only like playing with dolls and kitchen sets?
No, 100% not. And that's so funny. I never even thought about that. I was like totally a sporty girl. I wanted to be sporty girl.
Yeah. Like, I was just like, as you were talking, I was like thinking about my childhood, and like my brother's quite a bit younger than me, so like our household, we like had all like the girly toys like Barbies, and I loved playing with Barbies.
Yes, me too.
But like our neighbor was a boy, and he had a younger brother who was a little bit younger than my sister, and like their house was like Lego blocks and like Tonka trucks and diggers and Star Wars things. And I loved going over there to play. I loved playing with the Tonka trucks. You know?
Yeah, totally.
And riding our bikes in the alley and like drawing chalk roads and, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It really is all about what kind of experience you can create for your kids instead of, like I said earlier, you know, assigning what you think that they're going to be like or what kind of activities that they're going to enjoy. Yeah. Because I think at the end of the day, it just has to become a well-rounded environment. 100%. You know? And then you're not seeing things as like, oh, that's a pink or blue kind of thing. And to think of larger scale too, I think a big part of this is where bullying stems from, right? At least back when we were kids, that's what I kind of feel like people were often bullied because they were to this or to that. And it's like, oh, okay, if we could have maybe a less like black and white thinking on what we expect people to be like, then maybe we can have a little bit more acceptance for
that's interesting,
like how people show up. Yeah. You know, which if you take a really, really big scale, it can get a little political, right? But on a smaller scale in your home, at the fundamentals, it's like you just want everyone to be respected and loved for how they show up, you know? And so, yeah, if my little boy shows up and wants to play dress up with his sister, then whatever. Or if Poppy wants to like not dress up and just wants to rough and tumble and go play in the mud. Yeah. Cool. Like you guys are kids. You're supposed to be doing that stuff. It's so appropriate. You know?
So I know you kind of maybe already touched on this, but now that you've had some time to sit with it, what are you excited about in having a boy?
Yeah, I think it just wrapped it up in a bow, basically just being able to see the differences, because everyone does say like, oh, they're so different, but you have I've heard this. I'm very curious to hear your perspective on it, but I've heard, oh, but like boy love is a little bit different. Like when you have a son, it's just for some reason it's just a little bit different as a mother, and maybe that's because it's not something that we've experienced. Like we're not seeing their childhood through our eyes necessarily. We're just kind of embracing it for who they are. Does that make any sense? You know, because like when you have a daughter, again, maybe you're kind of seeing it through like, oh, when I was little or when I was your age, we played at kitchen sets or we had to go dress up dolls or, you know, things like that. And so you kind of like, oh, you're sassy like I was, you know, but when you have a boy, it's not something, you know, again, different brains.
I don't know. Art and sassy like I am.
Maybe the sassiness is a genetic trait. But
Arden's for sure got my, like, when he's hangry, you know about it. And, like, he's not very patient either. And I'm not very patient.
And you're like, that's all
we were waiting for Omari to get ready, and Arden, like, runs to the front door, and me and Arden have our coat and our shoes on, and Arden starts banging on the front door, and he's like, Dad, let's go!
Where has he heard that before?
Yeah, Omari laughed. He's like, he's your kid.
Yeah. That's so funny. It's true. There are definitely things that they're just going to pick up by virtue of being around you and your partner. Yeah, for sure. And that's going to be a fun part too, I think. In a totally different vein is, you know, now little boy is going to watch daddy and be like, okay, what am I going to pick up from dad? Just because...
Yeah, but Poppy picks up stuff from Josh too.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Well, that's just it. Is like you're gonna pick up things from your parents regardless. But just you know, male to male, female to female, just little things. You start to I don't know. You just have a little bit of a different bond, but it doesn't make any other bond like worse or lesser.
Yeah, I will say, just to like speak to like the boy mom and like the boy love thing. It's kind of like, I feel like having a son has just changed my perspective on men so much.
How so?
I mean, I just have this little boy who's like innocent and likes to roll around on the floor. Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like I see the innocence of men in my son that like I feel like society kind of like stomps on a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's given me a lot more like compassion towards men in general.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you see who they are, like how they started out, who they are really inside. Because everyone's inner child is still there.
Yeah. Oh. Not to use that as like an excuse for shitty behavior, but like, you know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you kind of want to like nurture. You realize something went awry probably. You know, just a lifetime of experiences that could have been loved more, taught more. Things like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. And similarly, well, maybe not. I'm not going to approach that subject, but I was going to say for girls, you know, I think we've touched on this in another episode as well, just how, I don't know, a lot of like strong traits or characteristics in either males or females can just be stomped out for a lot of different reasons. And it's hard to feel like you can be your authentic self and embrace who you are and become a healthy individual as an adult. So it'll be interesting. That's something that stresses me out a little bit about parenthood, is just like the weight of that. But I have some friends who said it's not our responsibility to have a perfect environment or to like make sure that our kid grows up perfectly. Our responsibility is to make sure that they can find the resources that they need and will pay for therapy. So, you know, every parent is doing their best, but it's cool to realize now in a generation where it's like, there's a lot of things we're just going to screw up by virtue of being human. And so
I also think too that there's an element though of like, when you do screw it up, like being able to take like personal responsibility for it without going down the rabbit hole of like shame and blame.
Totally. Like, I'm such a bad parent for doing this, or I'm so sorry you feel that way. Yeah. It can't be it can't be like a negative reflection on yourself. You just have to be like, okay, it is what it is, and
I'll do better do better with what I know now, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So some things that I did to get to this point now, I just want to touch on that briefly because I feel like some action points are really helpful for if you are experiencing gender disappointment, because you can it just feels like, okay, well, this is my life now, I'm just gonna be sad. And so obviously time was a big one. And then just what we're doing now, like talking about it, like, okay, what are your expectations for what you envisioned? Why did you have those standards set in place in the first place? And social media was really helpful to find other people's experience. That's another reason why I decided to post, because I was like, the more that's out there, the better, because I still feel like it's not talked about enough. Yeah. And so that was really helpful, just to feel like, you know, other people experience this. And again, it's not forever, and it's not a reflection on you. You know, you're not a bad person for having expectations or seeing things in a different way. But it is your responsibility to accept what it is and to work towards being excited, because at the end of the day, this person's going to be in your family. And
what are you going to do?
Very special. Forever? That's something that I thought about when I put it on social media. I was like, I would never want my son to come back to this and watch it and ask himself if he was like a disappointment to me always,
right.
you know?
Right.
And so I wanted to be very clear that, you know, I shared when I was excited, when I was ready to share, and just expose my process for it, right? Like just talk about the reality of people's emotions, because emotions are just that, like they're just emotions and they tell you something, right? And so if you can tune in to those emotions and ask yourself, what is this emotion actually telling me? Something inside is triggered. Then you've tapped into something really good. So that's what I decided I needed to do. I need to take some time, tap into that. And it helped so much. Just like let myself cry, not be mad about it. And then start to visualize, because I'm a huge visual person. It's like, okay, now I have to start really imagining. Because obviously when you think, oh, I'm going to have 2 girls, then you're obviously visualizing something, right? So you got to flip the script and visualize something different. So now I was starting to think about a little boy running around. I took my list of names I already had with a couple of girl and boy names and just started to go ham on the boy names. And it's been super fun, because a lot of the names that I thought would fit, suddenly for some reason, like it's so weird now that you kind of imagine the little person. You're like, actually, that doesn't really suit you, even though I don't know you yet.
It's so interesting though that you say that. Like, I don't know. I don't know why I've been thinking about this lately, but I've been thinking back to like being pregnant with Arden, and I was like, no, like your personality matches the personality that like
That's
I was.
So cool.
Yeah.
Like when he was still inside, you felt like that.
And I had a dream too one night of like this like curly haired kid like playing with me, but like he was like playing like hide and seek in the closet, and he'd like stick his head out and he'd like laugh, and like his laugh is exactly the same laugh as it was in the dream, and he plays hide and seek in the closet all the time.
That is so sweet. Oh my gosh. Oh, don't make me cry. Don't look at me. I'm hormonal. That's amazing. That's so exciting. Yeah. That's really cool. On a slightly different weird tangent, when we picked Poppy's name, it took us like a good month or 2 to get used to it, because she was so, you know, like that newborn, she was just very docile. I don't think I had any premonitions of what she would be like. I kind of just hoped that she would fit her name, because I really loved her name. I picked her name because we know somebody who's very like spunky and sweet and energetic and just like really good energy, just like good person energy. And I was like, okay, you've got to have that. So luckily she's definitely grew into the name, but it's cool. And you definitely, I've noticed thinking for a little boy, I'm like, there's a couple names that like feel better for you. You know, you can imagine them like growing into it or whatever. So that's really cool.
A lot of our people thought that Arden was going to be Theo for a really long time, and I'm so glad he's not a Theo, because he's not. It doesn't fit. It does not fit. No.
Theo's like a little bit more serious, I feel.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And Arden is just like Arden.
Not. He's goofy. He's so sweet.
Yeah.
He is a really good mix of you and Omari. It's really fun to watch. Yeah.
He's hilarious.
It's so cool. Well, that's awesome. But that basically wraps up, honestly, what we want to talk about today, because, I'm in a good place. I'm excited. I'm glad that we've been able to talk a little bit more about because I think this is something that a lot of people can maybe expand their horizons on, you know, and maybe don't realize they might have these thoughts until it happens. When it happens, what are you going to do about it, you know? So
I also just wanted to throw in really quick before we wrap up. I think the reverse, I've heard, can also be a thing for dads. Like dads that find out they're having girls and like go into this like panic.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh my God, I have to raise a daughter. And like, that's
so funny.
I remember being like a teenager and like being like, Dad, I don't know why you're so like weird about me dating. He's like, because I was a teenage boy once.
Oh, we should have talked about this. That's a really good point. Maybe that's something that Omari and Josh can touch on.
Omari and Josh can touch on it, or there's some other people I'm thinking that could be interesting guests to touch on that.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, we need some more perspectives on this for sure. Yeah. If you have any good recommendations, let us know.
Yes. Okay.
But thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thanks. And we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, much love. Bye.